While I do love my craft room and it has served me well for the past 6 years, I think some things could be even better. So the time has come to change it up. One of the previous owners had installed a large closet in the middle of the room to separate it into a walk-in closet and a slightly smaller room. But the closet layout wasn't ideal, and now that I've turned another room into a giant closet, this one isn't needed anymore, and the space can be better used for actual crafting. So let's see if we manage to do this one a bit quicker than the remodel of the closet room. Okay, it's really weird to see the closet this empty because I think it hasn't been this empty since we bought the house. The only slightly sad thing is that while removing the posters, I ripped my favorite one. Oh well, luckily I am going to Greylight again next year, so who knows, maybe I can score a new one. But with everything empty, it was time to start demolishing. And once again, we immediately ran into some, well, interesting construction choices by the previous owners. This took us 2 days and it only caused minor extra damage. So I'd say that went pretty well. After removing the closet last weekend, it is now time to start thinking about the next steps. But this is also quite an interesting period because tomorrow is my last day at my current job. Then I have the LARP Summer Festival the weekend. And then I have 2 weeks off where I'm in between jobs. And I hope to get as much of this room done in that time frame as possible. So what do I still want to do this week? I want to get as much of the demolished closet down as possible because currently all of the shelves are stacked against the closet we built previously in the room next to this. And I want to have access to that closet again. Then there is still a lot of stuff up on my shelves above my PC and it is probably gonna get dusty here with all the work being done, so I want to get rid of as much of that as possible. And after that I want to clear as much of the stuff against this big wall so we can start here with removing the wallpaper. And if you are wondering why I wanted to get rid of this pretty forest wallpaper, well, it isn't that pretty anymore. So yesterday evening I returned from the summer festival. It was a lot of fun, but I'm currently tired as heck. Everything hurts in good ways. But what do you want? We did 2 hours of sword fighting workshops and 4 hours of a short LARP, which was fully played through dance. Anyway, the plan was to not do too much today. Basically sleep in, unpack my bags and start removing part of the carpet in this room. So that I can make a mess on this side, but there is still carpet under my desk chair. And somehow it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I already did all of that. So let's just start with the plans for tomorrow, which is to wet the wallpaper and see if that comes off easier without ripping off half of the paint layer that's underneath. In a way to prevent what happened in the previous room. I am super happy with the way that it comes off right now. I'd almost call it satisfying. But sadly, I am not completely rid of the issues with the paint chipping. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there are actually paint bubbles under here as well. So yeah, I'm afraid that is still a thing. Yeah, again, I'm not gonna trust putting anything over it when it's a giant bubble that just comes off in, yeah, pretty much one go. So we'll still have that issue. But hey, at least the wallpaper comes off very easily and neatly. It's something. Okay, this camera is not a vlogging camera, it's way too heavy for that, so apologies for the shaking, but I'm gonna try it anyway. Just before and after dinner yesterday, I managed to finish removing 2 more sections of wallpaper, so actually I'm quite happy considering I was actually only planning to start on it today with how far we already got. But before I'm gonna remove all of the other wallpaper, there's one more thing I want to do, and that is I'm gonna see if I can remove more carpet, because after removing the carpet yesterday, we noticed that there are quite a few scratches in the floor, and there is some really bad scratching here in the corner. These are truly damages to the floor, which means that I might have to make the decision on whether I want to remove the entire floor. And that will mean that that closet also needs to be removed. But before I make that decision, I want to see as much of the floor as possible. And the surprises of weird decisions just keep coming. I have no idea why they sawed a giant gap into these floorboards, but yeah. Anyway, since the carpet was one big piece leading into the hallway, I cut it off with a bit to spare so we can trim it to the exact size later. At this point, I was also still under the weird impression that I could somehow keep my desk set up during the reno, but in hindsight, I have no idea why I thought that. While doing all of this, I realized something funny, and that is that they hung the wallpaper the wrong way around. Because if you look very carefully, you can see a small alignment mark here, and there is the edge of the wallpaper. Just like here, there is a corner, and there's the edge of the wallpaper. So the wallpaper should have overlapped the other way, so that these marks would not have been visible. Oh well, I guess that's par for the course for everything we've seen so far. So with the wallpaper gone and the paint layers I didn't trust, it was once again time to start on the monumental task of scraping paint off walls. This time I was smart enough to set timers for half an hour at a time. And honestly, this wall is a whole lot easier to remove the paint from than the previous room. The half-hour sessions also means I still have enough back left to clean up the mess straight away and wipe down the wall. It gets pretty dusty under the paint, and I wanted to keep my desk and such as dust-free as possible. After each half hour came a sit-down break, which were perfect to work on my other goal for these 2 weeks. Actually get some Japanese studying in, as it had been pretty neglected for a while. And this is where we're at after 2.5 days of paint scraping. Honestly, I'm not mad. I'm quite happy with this. I think this morning I'll do one more round of paint scraping, probably there in the corner or up there, because this afternoon my dad's probably gonna come by with his larger car and the trailer, so I can bring all of the old closet that was here to the dump. And then he's also gonna help me with the electrical board there, because his electrical things are still quite scary. And yes, we cannibalized the door from the other room to put in my room, because my room currently has no door and I'll be dusting in there a lot. So having a door in there helps to not have everything come into the rest of the house. And as I would like to get all of the old carpet to the dump in one go, this was also the moment to disassemble the rest of my desk and make a temporary setup in the closet room. I think I know how long the carpet's been there. And while removing it, I realized it was very much time for it to go. It was seriously disintegrating in some places, leaving it an absolute mess. In the end, we managed to make it to the dump before closing, with a very full trailer. My dad easily managed to change the weird lighting connection into a proper outlet, and he also helped fix the issue with the bolt that was stuck in the wall. After which, I could finish setting up my PC in its new spot. So today is Sunday, which means there's 1 week left before I'm starting my new job. The idea was that today was the last day of paint scraping, and then tomorrow I wanted to start with the paint stripper. So I did another round of paint scraping up there and all the way down there. And I experimented with wetting these bits before scraping them, and that went so well that I think it works even easier than paint stripping this, which is a really good thing because the paint stripper takes a while. So that means for the rest of the day I'm just going to remove more of the yellow spots, and then tomorrow I'm going to start paint stripping the top half there and maybe some of the bottom, but we'll see about that. Time to move upwards. Check, check. Something on ventilation, check, check. The process itself is pretty simple, but I mostly don't like doing it because of the fumes and because it takes a long while. As after painting it on, it needs to be covered with plastic and then sit for 3.5 to 4 hours. Then it can be scraped off, taking the paint layer with it. I'm not entirely sure how happy I am with this result though, as some of the primer seems to be staying behind. The noise might be a bit worse than usual, but I think you might forgive me for not closing the window at the moment. I hope the neighbor stays somewhat quiet. Anyway, this does give me time to think about my next sort of headache thing on this room, which is that the quality of the floor in this room is a whole lot worse than in the room next to this that we did previously. So why am I saying this? Well, there are parts, well now they're also dusty. There are parts that have a lot of scratches in them. So like that, especially this corner has really bad scratches, and as you can see the gaps between some of the planks are quite big as well. Plus, I have no idea what they were thinking. I think I already showed you before, but now I'm gonna show you with an explanation. For some really weird reason, they made a gap there. As you can see, the planks were already in the room. It's not that they were missing a bit. No, they specifically cut through the planks here. Talking about cutting through planks, they also cut the carpet while it was on the floor already. Here you can sort of see the outline of the tape. But this entire line is just a cut line through the floor. Again, this closet is also built on top of the floor. So I don't want to get rid of the floor because this floor is on the entire top floor of this house. So yeah, this means I gotta think about what I want to do with this. But for that, the first thing that I'm gonna try is in that already damaged corner, see what happens if I sand the floor. If I can sort of restore it, I might actually be okay with the gaps and everything. Because if stuff like this can be restored, I'm still quite okay with the floor, because it is a really pretty floor. I really like the color. One small positive thing of the fact that they cut through the floor here is that I can kind of see the side. And it seems to be one solid piece of wood and not some really nice wood on some less nice wood. So yeah, in that case, this might actually be a really good floor and I kind of want to keep it. And an actual positive thing, it seems the floor can be sanded. I didn't go all the way to the wood, but it seems to be a lacquer layer over the hardwood floor. So sanding the entire thing seems like it's going to be the way to go. So slight change of plan for today. I don't think I'll be doing a lot of paint stripping today because yeah, that's not gonna be dry today. And yeah, there's still plenty of that stuff on the wall, so I guess that's what I'll be doing today. Plus I also have to run a few errands, so not sure how much I'm gonna do today, but hey, every little bit will count. And as I can imagine that you're getting fed up with all the time lapses, I just filmed one today. Ta-da! A nearly empty wall. I only have some of the very edges left, and of course the top edge. And I must say I'm not entirely happy with how that turned out with the paint stripper. So I did continue scraping some paint off normally, like there, because that might also be quicker than having to wait the 3 hours for the paint stripper. So yeah, but I did not expect the wall to be this empty already today, so who knew? Maybe the fact that it rained the entire day was a good thing. So sadly, a small setback. I had hoped to do everything up here by hand today without the paint stripper, but I started doing that bit there with just water and the paint scraper, and it took so long that I think I'll have to do this with paint stripper anyway. Luckily it is slightly better weather today. I can open up the window. The remainder of this week I have something every afternoon or evening, so I'm not sure if I can do 2 rounds a day, but we shall see how far we can get. So the next days were filled with rounds of applying paint stripper, waiting a few hours, and then removing it again. I also figured things were going to get more dusty from that point on, so it felt like a good moment to fully clear out the rest of the room and to take down the curtains. Waiting for the paint stripper to do its things was a good moment to set up the sewing machine on the kitchen table to work on neglected projects, like the sweater for my partner. However, a downside to working downstairs is the adorable distractions that sometimes happen. Aside from the paint stripper, I also took some time to properly finish the rest of this wall. So today is Sunday, the very last day of being in between jobs, and I'm starting my new job tomorrow. Time went by way too quickly, but there is still a lot to do, so let's see how much of that we can do today. And then on to the next big bit, filling all the countless holes the wall already had, plus the ones I accidentally added. Overall, the wall was in pretty decent shape, except for the really large ones around the outlets. And well, considering I always mix too much anyway, I just couldn't help myself and tried to fill as many of the smaller ones as well. And with that, the big wall is pretty much done. All it needs is some sanding on all the spots that I just filled. But with all the leftovers, I went pretty much all out, and I'm kinda happy with how smooth I got the wall. So now I have to decide, well, after sanding, if I want to do just painting or if I need wallpaper on this as well. But I have some time to decide about that because I'm now going to continue on the other walls. And as you can see, I removed some paint here. This just came loose when I removed the boarding underneath. But I am kind of hoping for both this, well, column wall thingy, that wall, and that wall to not have to remove all of the paint, because that would save a lot of time. So yeah, after some prodding, that wall is good to go. This wall I'm actually mostly gonna ignore. I'm even gonna leave the board down there, which means that there is only a few bits that need to be neatened up. And then we can just repaint that nice and white. And this, yeah, as you might have just seen, this is a bit of a disappointment, because with how easily everything is coming off, this white has been painted over the brown. So that means that this layer of paint is even thicker than the rest. And it also comes off really easily. So yeah, I think that means that we have to remove all of it. So I think I know what I'm going to be doing for the next few weeks. So the remainder of this last free day was spent by removing the pegboard and starting to strip paint from this wall. The evening after my first day of work, I wanted to do something, but I really didn't feel like changing into workwear. So in the category "a little bit is better than nothing," I figured I could at least remove half of the shelf attachments. And of course, once I actually managed to get started, I just went ahead and did all 4 of them in one go. On Tuesday I was pretty brain fried. Luckily, paint scraping doesn't require much thinking and did scratch that itch of wanting to do at least something. Wednesdays and Thursdays, not much happened because I was doing the sports thing. Take 2 this time, hopefully without leaf blowers. Anyway, currently it is Friday, which means that for me the weekend has already started, and this morning I already did some more paint scratching of the walls. It's actually quite a lot. But yeah, I think you can guess what I'll be doing the rest of the weekend. So I survived my first work week pretty well. I started with 3 days of training and met most of my colleagues, who seem like a pretty chill bunch of people. But I won't bore you with that for much longer. After all, this channel is about the fun stuff, like crafts and events, and not my mundane adulting life. Honestly, I'm seriously surprised with how easily all of this went off the wall. I mean, it's currently Sunday around lunchtime, so yes, there is definitely still a bit to do up there and well, down there. And it does seem that the brown paint wants to come off slightly less easy than the white paint, purely because the white paint has an extra layer on top of it. A slight thing, however, is that I am damaging the wall a lot more. Like here you can kind of see all the different stripes of where I removed the paint. But that doesn't really matter because I was already planning to put plaster or something over it anyway, because if I wouldn't be able to remove all of the paint to get rid of all of the ridges, I would have plastered it anyway. And it's a really good thing that this is going off this easy, because there is a slight change of plans in my original idea of removing paint all weekend, because when I was walking through my garden earlier on Friday, my potatoes were not looking as good. So I have to dig up some potatoes next. And if there is anything that consumes a lot of back battery, it is digging in the garden. So I'm not sure if I can do a lot more paint scraping today. So, nearly there. A giant amount of potatoes. But how enthusiastic they were exactly? Well, they grew even outside of their bed. I found a potato right over there. And I also won't be doing much work here next weekend because I will be at a LARP. And we'll see again after that. And we're back from the LARP. Boya was a lot of fun, but as you might be able to see, I did a slight oopsie. Going to the doctor's at 2 in the morning to have my chin glued back together was not necessarily on my planned to-do list, but yet here we are. I can recommend not wearing too long hakama while in combat and trying to sprint. Yes, I did a full face plant on the ground. That wasn't a lot of fun. But anyway, it looks a lot worse than it is. I didn't even necessarily have to go to the doctor. I mostly went because it's right on the edge, and having it glued back together will hopefully make the scarring look a bit better. So, yeah, this does also mean that I have to postpone renovating for a bit because wearing protection is not going to be possible at this moment, because this doesn't necessarily hurt unless there's pressure on it. And when I wear a mask, there is pressure on it. So yeah, that's gotta wait for a bit. I might use this time to see if I can go ahead and already edit some of this video. But on the other hand, I know myself and I'm probably just gonna game a lot. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I'll be back in some time, I suppose. Unfortunately, about a week after the fall, I did end up getting concussion symptoms after all. Luckily, they weren't too bad, but still, I had to postpone the renovation quite a bit more. And once I did start again, I did so carefully, only 10-15 minutes at the time. But hey, at least being able to do something and make some progress is a whole lot better than not being able to do anything at all. So, hi, it's been a while since I did a talking head, but I figured it's a nice time for an update right now because the wall is pretty much free of paint, which means that the next step is to start plugging holes, but I'll do that at some later point. For now, there is another decision that I had to make, and it has kind of been made for me. For the floor, I'm going to rent a sander, a bigger one than I have myself. And for the proper kick in my butt, I asked my dad to come and help me with that, which he will be doing in 2 weeks. Before that, pretty much all I have to do is just get rid of this junk. And all the other stuff that I'm going to do before that, like plugging holes, it really doesn't matter when that's going to happen or if it's even going to happen afterwards. However, for that, I was also doubting on whether I am going to empty that wall and whether I'm going to remove the boarding, because it's not fully necessary, because I realized the floorboards aren't really going to go under this, so we can just sand it up till there. And not having to remove anything on that wall would save a whole lot of hassle, especially not having to remove the radiator. The plan was then just to paint over that wall because there are some scuffs. It's not too bad. Until today, when with the right lighting, I realized, not sure if you can hear this, the paint is very loose on this wall as well. You might even be able to see it here. It's, I believe, also going to come off really easily in some spots, and I don't trust painting over that. So I guess there will be more wall that we're going to remove the paint from, but it doesn't really matter when that's going to happen. But I will try to remove the boarding and the radiator, I guess, before we're going to sand the wall. So today is Friday the 31st of October. Yes, it's Halloween, and today is the first day that I am mostly headache free. I have a somewhat dull feeling in my head, but fingers crossed that at least it seems to be improving. So room reno wise, this wall is pretty much empty. At least as empty as I'm going to get it with the radiator still on there. And yes, there are still some yellow spots And I am going to remove those as well, because that is actually the stuff that's coming loose from the wall. I think it's a kind of primer that's not meant for this type of wall. So radiator is probably going to happen tomorrow, but today I am going to try and see if I can get started on plugging the many holes in this wall, or at least the first layer of plugging the holes in this wall. Some of the previous holes had been filled with the plugs still in them, so I dug those out as well. What's a few more holes to fill at this point? It will at least properly fix this wall. Then it was time to fully clear out the room and make sure dust couldn't get into the gaps of the remaining closet. After picking up the rental machines, we could get started with sanding. Sadly, the person giving us the machines didn't seem to know much about them, I guess. He gave us sandpaper that was far too smooth, and one of the machines was missing the dust bag as well. So it was back to the hardware store while my dad kept sanding. Luckily, it only takes a few minutes by bike. Armed with rougher sandpaper, but still no proper dust bag, we could continue. The improvised vacuum bag we taped on sort of held, until it didn't. So it was repeatedly taped back on with more and more layers of tape. We'd actually had some issues removing the radiator earlier, so my dad helped us with that after we finished sanding. It was still a bit weird and continues to leak slightly, but only so little it can be managed with a towel. Even with the machines we couldn't reach everywhere, so I spent the next week painstakingly sanding the last bits by hand, alternated with scraping the last bits of paint off the wall. So finally finished sanding all of the floor stuff. I just finished scraping the last bits of paint off of that wall after removing the radiator, which means that we're actually done with all of that. And that's really nice because that wall was the last of it. It means that we're finally done scraping all of the paint from all of the walls. Which means that I can actually do a really good clean in this room and properly remove all of the dust, like also all of the dust that ended up on the plastic over there, and hopefully lower the amount of dust in the entire house a bit. And the other cool thing about that is that I think this was the last big destroying thing what we had to do. From now on, everything we do hopefully makes it look a bit prettier instead of a bigger construction project. And with the amount of footage that I filmed up till now and the amount of times I've been talking to the camera up now, I think this might be a good moment to end this video so that the entire next video will be about, well, making it prettier. Hopefully that part will go with less delays, concussions, and all that sort of stuff. But hey, I have no idea about that yet, so I'm curious. At least, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.